Hey everyone, welcome back to Backstage WA. We're so glad to be back. My name is Shannon.
I'm Kaylin, and we're really excited to be back in 2024. We've rejigged the formula a bit, and we can't wait to bring you more stuff out of WA in the screen industry, music industry, everything. And speaking of which, we've got some amazing Australian talent here today who have been making moves nationally, internationally, working on some really amazing projects.
Yep, so first off, we have director of Before Dawn, Jordon Wright. And secondly, we have the writer and actor in Dusty, Travis Jeffery.
Yep, and we can't wait to interview them, get them to, answer some of our questions about their process and what it's like working in the local industry.
So today we're here with Jordon Wright, the director of Before Dawn. How are you today?
Well, how are you?
I'm good,
Doing
thank
good.
you. We actually go quite back, don't we?
We do, yeah. You got to see a cut of the film when there was no visual effects or sound or anything. So when it was, let's just say, very bad.
In terms of adding the effects and adding post sound, I remember I think it was a photo of recording like a battle cry or something in a studio, and they had a bunch of the actors in there and adding that in after. What was that experience like?
So yeah, we one day we decided that we needed to actually get proper charging sounds and everything, and so the best way to do it, we were at ABC Studios and got a whole bunch of our extras who were amazing to work with on set, but we got about 50 or so of them in a studio, set up all these mics, and we had them screaming for minutes on end, running from one side of the studio to another. And we got reports that the next day that a lot of them had lost their voice because it was just 7 hours of screaming and charging sounds. And but having all of that really kind of created that world, so that when people are sitting there and watching that film, it feels on this massive scale because of that sound.
You started your career at a really young age, and you won Australian Filmmaker of the Year in 2014. Can you tell us a bit about the beginning of your filmmaking path?
I got nominated for all the stuff that I did in high school, and then I flew over east and I got to meet Jack Thompson, who kind of gave me some advice, and at the time I had no idea who the heck that was. It was just like, cool, there's this really passionate guy telling me about the film industry, and I wrote off to other industry professionals, including Ian Hale, who's here in Perth. I wrote it in my letter when I was 13.
Executive producer Ian Hale. So again, another connect there. He's bringing everyone together in the WA industry.
Yeah, so dear Mr. Hale, check out my short film. And it was very much just connecting with as many people as possible, and from that suddenly started winning these awards. And I was originally going into customs, so one day I decided to come home and tell my parents, no, I'm not going into a government paid job. I'm going to go into the arts industry. And they kind of had a bit of a freak out because everyone knows the arts don't necessarily pay straight away. And but it just went non-stop from there. So one short film, then the next one, then did a feature, and then now Before Dawn. And so I haven't stopped. I haven't really looked back since.
So I want to touch on the budget. For a war movie, it had a relatively modest budget.
Yeah, it was like this big. It was tiny.
Yeah. How did you work with the cinematographer to achieve like this type of movie with such a small budget?
Like the epic feel of it.
I love the golden era of cinema where it's CGI can be outdated very quickly. In fact, Toy Story was on TV about 2-3 weeks ago, and I was like, I remember this looking really good, but it now looks really bad because the CGI is dated so quickly. So being able to make a film where you don't have that much CGI in it, or limited or next to nothing, means that film can last longer. That's what I believe anyhow. So that kind of ties into, all right, well, let's build the sets. Let's make them as epic. Let's build them to scale. But then the business structure that I've adopted, which was with the short films and the last film, was, well, let's actually engage businesses across WA, or now with Before Dawn across Australia. And it was businesses that would donate the wood, or, like we had BP and Caltex donating fuel, or Ford was donating cars. So suddenly now you've got all this in-kind support. And whilst the budget is small, technically the budget is bigger because you're just not paying for that. They're actually giving it to you in kind, and it's a sponsorship situation. And then also because of charity work that we do with telethon on the side, it's kind of win-win for everybody. So it works. It's out quite well because I get to do what I love doing, which is make an epic film, but also not having to wait 7 or 8 years to try and raise 20, 30, $50 million. And, and then it also becomes part of this network, this community that everybody's going, oh yeah, well, this is an epic project and we want to be part of it.
Before Dawn has had its premiere now, and critics have been rolling in, what has been the most meaningful response you've had to this film?
So when we did our test screening, we had, this is early test screening, we actually had people crying and I was like, oh, what have I done?
We were at that test screening.
Yeah. But the thing with that test screening is that there was no music, there was no emotion that had really been put into it other than the raw emotion that the actors were portraying, and the audio and everything was all over the place. There's no color grade. So to get that reaction at that stage was quite powerful. But at the premiere, at the end, they walked me out so that way because we had 1,500 people plus that were at the premiere, it was nuts. And what they did is they kind of got me near the backdrop so that way when everyone's coming out, they'd all gather there for photos, but also encourage people to move out quickly because it's 1,500 people is a lot of people. And I'm standing there and everyone's coming out and they're all walking up and, shaking hands, having photos, and 60, 70% of people were crying. And it was that same thing like, whoa, hang on a minute, what have I done again? But it was kind of going, yeah, that's what we wanted. We wanted people, the whole point of this film was that awareness of the sacrifices of those men and women back then. And the fact that we've obviously hit a chord there, they've realised that, there's that awareness finally that's come across, but also we've taken them on this emotional journey. So they're coming out of that going, oh, it's not just a war film that it was a shoot 'em up. This was a story and that this is really raw and this is our story. This is an Anzac story.
The performances as well are especially powerful. We're interviewing today Travis Jeffery, who stars as Thomas Nichols in the film. That's right? His yes, Thomas Nichols. Yes, got it. I remembered it. So many names. But yeah, you had quite, even though there was kind of a lead character, you really had this core cast of actors who really brought that sense of like the mateship and the emotion to life. How did you find directing all them and their dynamic together?
So I'm a strong believer as a director, half of my job is casting correctly. So if you've cast correctly, 50% of your job's done, and then it's just a matter of pulling out what you want out of that particular actor. And I got to work with the most incredible cast, all of them. Levi, Travis, like you mentioned, Miles, Tim, Jordon, Ed, like they were all, and then of course even the supporting cast, and even working with them, it was really incredible to see the dynamics, like working with the females that were the nurses or at home, and then also the mother and the sister, but then also going, okay, now we're going to go from filming that home dynamic to now we're on the Western Front, and they're all these boys that are just come from the outback and they're all really raw, and without being too stereotypical, like, oh yeah, we're off to go to the war and let's be happy. It was just like, no, they're not really sure what they're expecting. So there was a lot of discussions with all of the cast around that, and being able to work with all of them. And even, I got to work with Stephen Peacock, who was unreal to work with, but all of them, they'd rock up, they'd do their thing, and then they'd leave. But that first week, it was like, okay, well, this is the story we're doing. Then it started pouring down with rain, and then everything that could go wrong went wrong on the first day. We had 120-kilometre gust winds. The set was literally, the first set we were doing was tents. It was just blowing over. Like, it was just destroyed. We look back at it now and have a bit of a laugh, but, we had 2 of the coaches got bogged. Even though we had roads that were built, 2 coaches got bogged. We had one of the vehicles, something went wrong with the injector for the diesel or whatever. So it was just a multitude of things. And like I said, we look back at it now and have a bit of a laugh, but it was shocking. So that's when we were going, okay, this is how this shoot's going to pan out. This is going to be a really hard shoot. But it was actually the Thursday night when we all got together and we did karaoke at the local pub that everyone really connected. And suddenly it was after that moment that on set, everybody, it was almost like, the mateship suddenly just became a real thing. The crew was helping the cast helping the crew. The extras were so awesome to work with, and they were great because they'd really kind of boost your ego and spirits. They walk past the camera and be like, oh, that's so cool what you're doing here. Or, so being able to have that dynamic and have that incredible cast, but also people started to realize that we're not just making a film here, we're telling a story that's quite significant. It's an Anzac story. So then it started to really hit home, and then the cast and you saw the cast go from, oh yeah, we're here to work on an awesome film, to, no, we're actually telling a story that needs to be told.
Speaking of looking back at the production, In the Trenches, which is a documentary about the making of Before Dawn, directed by Benjamin Scotford, which is also showing at Revelation Film Festival, so come and check it out. We'll be there, is about to debut. I've seen all the trailers and content, and again, what you describe about the craziness of the set. How's that experience? Have you seen the film yet?
Ben actually came up to me on set during the first week and said, oh, I want to make a documentary. Which as a filmmaker, straight away you think, yeah, because there's stuff going wrong here. So clearly it's like, great, that's awesome. That's awesome, Ben. You want to make a doco, but we're trying to make a movie, you know. But we sat down and watched the doco, and genuinely I said to him afterwards, I thought, oh, doco, you know, whoop-de-doo, you know, it's a doco on us making a film, etc. Within the first 3 minutes I was hooked, because the doco isn't about Before Dawn as such, but it's about a whole bunch of people getting together to pull off the impossible, and how he's crafted this story and the journey of what we went through. And like, I sat there and got, you know, I got emotional watching it because we went through it, but I also got emotional thinking, far out, this, you know, all these people have got together to make this, and we've actually done it. And it's not, like I said, it's not about Before Dawn, but it's about the people behind it and what we tried to do with the sponsors, the cast, the crew. And without giving too much away, it actually finishes with us all attending the premiere. So it's not how did the film go, because it's not about the film. It's actually about the journey and the story behind getting this film made.
What would you say is one of the best pieces of advice you received about filmmaking and being a filmmaker?
So it's to go out and just make stuff. And I get asked actually as well the same sort of question at times, and it's just go out and make it. Like, yes, you go and get your degree and everything, but I personally learnt more making the films, making the short films, doing the networking, because it's from those short films you get to go to festivals, you get to network. It's from the feature film that, again, festivals, awards, networking, and you start to build that crew. So if you actually are going out and actively making stuff, like I go down the beach with my two dogs. I've got a blue and a red heeler, and every time I'm down there, I'm always filming them. But I'm not filming them going, oh yeah, let's just put this on Instagram or Facebook. I'm filming going, oh, that looks good. Oh, the sunset and this shot and that shot. So it's very hard for me to turn that filmmaking mind off, I guess. But it's always making stuff, because if you stop, you almost lose it a little bit. And we actually found that with Before Dawn. It took us a good couple of days to get back into it, because a lot of us hadn't even been on set for 8 months. There was a massive gap. So we ended up building all these cardboard trenches and everything to do test lighting. And it was during that time that a lot of the crew, we'd all worked together, but we're going, we need to re-gel. We need to start working. So if you're constantly making stuff and you're constantly networking, you've built that network, then pretty much your job's done. That way, when you're on set, it's just then being able to focus creatively on making the film.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jordon.
No worries.
Again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the first episode back.
Ooh, awesome.
So we're here now with actor and now writer and also star of Dusty, Travis Jeffery, who's on Zoom with us right now, very graciously. Hi, how are you, Travis?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here and have a chat.
Awesome. We're so happy to have you here as well. Let's just talk about. I think we'll start with the deep dive, going way back.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. So I grew up on a cattle farm in a place called the Yarra Valley out in Hillsville in Victoria. And my older sister Tracy, she was an actor when I was growing up, and I hated it. My parents were like, do you want to do what Tracy does? Do you want to, do some classes, try and do some acting? I was like, I cannot think of anything worse than standing up in front of a bunch of people acting. So I didn't do anything for a long time. And then kind of midway through high school, I got sucked into a school play. Somebody dropped out and they needed somebody to jump in, and I did it. I had one line. The line was sung. I can't sing. I was going through puberty at the time, so my voice was breaking. But I got up there every night, even though I was terrified, and I did it. And then I sort of fell in love with that rush. I've been very lucky to have spent the majority of the last 12 years acting professionally. So yeah, went to Whopper and kind of haven't looked back.
And you've done a few films in WA. I know recently Frederickstown down in Albany, and then also Birthright, which is coming up. Do you enjoy working with the WA crew, WA scene?
I love it. I've done Before Dawn, I've done Heights. I love it. I think Perth is just such a wonderful place to work. Everybody's just so lovely. And, going from a cattle farm to drama school in Perth was just the perfect stepping stone because, everybody says that Perth's like a big country town, the city. And I couldn't agree more. It's just such a lovely, relaxed place. It's just a bit slower than over here. So it was really nice. And it's really lovely to come back and the crews are wonderful. The locations are amazing. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. So, I'll keep coming back to Perth for as long as people have me.
We just had Jordon on, who is the director of Before Dawn, a film that you starred in. How did he help shape your character and what was his directorial style like?
Yeah, Jordon was great. Is he still in the room? Can he hear me?
He's waiting for
He's waiting for this answer.
He's over there absolutely.
Yeah. A really generous director, and really what I loved most is, in the lead up to it with Jordon and with Jared, the writer, we spoke a lot about character. We spoke, they were really flexible with sort of playing around with dialogue and including our thoughts in the script, which I think is such a great way to approach a production and a great way to direct, because it gives the cast and gives everybody ownership when they feel like their ideas are being heard and their ideas are being included. So it was a really wonderful process.
Got the seal of approval. He's over there like, yeah, nice, thumbs up, got to go.
Oh, he just left. So what was the worst?
What was
experience?
the real? How do you really think? And you're, of course, in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the latest movie. You recently had the premiere. How was that with the dots, working in the mocap suit? I know you did a lot of on-location work in that. How was that experience?
We did. Yeah, it was amazing. It was a really wonderful experience. I've looked up to this and loved this franchise for my whole life. I think I watched the OG Planet of the Apes when I was 13 and just became fascinated and terrified with that world. But I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I would end up being in a Planet of the Apes film. All the way through WAPA, all the way through my career, I've really loved movement. I was a kid, grew up on a farm. You couldn't keep me out of a tree. You couldn't keep me off the hay bales. I just loved climbing. I loved playing. And then when we got to drama school, my teacher, Lisa Scott Murphy, really sort of kicked off my hunger and my love of physical transformation work and movement work. But you don't really get to do that in majority of film and TV. You're just playing a human, you're just playing us. There's a little bit of animal work you can play around with, but to spend 6 weeks in ape school learning to become a chimp was it was a dream come true. And again, it was similar to Before Dawn, bonding with everybody through these experiences, spending 6 weeks together, feeling like an idiot because you're running around the room as a chimp, finding your character, building your character together, built this kind of inseparable bond between us all, which really made its way to the screen. And I think it was such a genius thing to do, to get everybody into this ape school together. After a couple of weeks of shooting, the studio came back and they're like, hey, we're really loving the relationships of the trio. It's really reading, which is what happened because we were training together. And then, the guys were from out of town. Lydia and Owen, who I spend most of the time with in the film, they were from New Zealand and from America. So, I was taking them around Sydney and, we're hanging out at the beach and just spending all our time together, just getting really close. And that sort of did the majority of the work for us on screen. Yeah, it was just a real dream come true. So, I'm more than happy to be typecast as a chimp. I'll be happy to be chimp until I can't chimp no more. So keep it coming.
You got your master's degree in chimp studies now as well from ape school. Yes. So that's something not a lot of people can claim. Thesis in ape movement. That's unique.
I definitely have like a million questions about ape school, but I'll leave that to after the podcast is over. So your film Dusty that you wrote and starred in, that premiered at the St Kilda Film Festival. How was that experience?
It did. It was a wonderful experience. It was really it was great getting to celebrate and sort of bring the crew together and get to watch our work on screen together with an audience, because it can take years for anyone who hasn't made a film before or doesn't really know the process. I think I started writing Dusty 2.5 years ago, so it takes a while, and that's for a short film. So it was just really wonderful to sit in an audience, terrifying, really terrifying, and kind of feel them engage in your film, laugh at the moments you want them to laugh, and you can feel the tension in the moments that you hope they feel tense. And so it was a really, really wonderful experience. And it was just nice to get to take the DOP, Kate Cornish, there, and production designer Dane Hallett, Jeremy Lindsay Taylor, the director, came down, and the producers came down, Valley and Elizabeth. And it was just really wonderful to sit there with them and just kind of celebrate what we had done and what we'd achieved. That.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. You're back.
There we go. Oh, I was like, we're just waiting. I'm like, so still, so skilled. And I was like, wait, what's going on?
That ape school knowledge came in.
Yes,
Camouflaging in the wild.
I thought the same when I finished my answer. I was like, oh no, they're not happy with what I've said. They're just not saying anything.
So Dusty is inspired by your own personal grief story. What's it like being that vulnerable in a script, then watching it act out in front of you and then having it play in front of people? Like, what is that feeling like?
It was a really amazing experience. And I think I've learned so much doing Dusty as a filmmaker and as a human being. So it's based on, about 7 years ago, I lost a friend to cancer. So the film isn't based on this person, but it's based on how I dealt with the grief of this situation, which was not in a very healthy way. So I wanted to write a film that reflected and showed the toxic side of grief. I dealt with humor, I dealt with grief with humor, with deflection, with partying, essentially. So it was an incredibly vulnerable experience, and I didn't quite realize how vulnerable it was until I started to watch the rushes. I could be quite objective with the writing of the script. I could be quite objective with the acting. I could just rock up and do my job. And then when we started to put it together with the rough cut, that's when it hit me, and I went, oh, well, yeah, I have to show this to my family. I have to show this to the world. So that was a really daunting experience. But as a filmmaker, making your own thing, being a producer, bringing people together, it was an incredible experience. And it was a really beautiful experience just seeing how much people want to help and how much people will do because you've helped them in the past. So it's a really wonderful community. And in terms of a human, I think it helped me really understand how I deal with grief, how I will deal with grief better in the future. So it's been an amazing experience, and it's just, it's really kicked off my love for writing and for jumping on the other side of the camera. So it's been such a wonderful experience, and I look forward to digging deeper into that craft of writing and sort of producing as well as acting.
Thank you so much for answering our questions today, Travis, and just being such a great presence on the show. Thank you so much. And it's been really great to talk to you.
My pleasure. Yeah, really lovely to chat to you guys. Thank you.
Revelation Film Festival is back in 2024, running from the 3rd of July to the 14th of July this year. They've got amazing films, over 200 international and local short films as well, and features, docos, everything you can imagine, as well as some moving arts exhibitions at galleries across Perth, and also the XRWA Games and VR Expo. So there's a lot going on. It's going to be very exciting. We'll definitely be at a lot of the premieres.
Yeah, we will. And for more information, you can head to revelationfilmfest.org or head to their social media.